Hello everybody, this is the Adafruit CircuitPython weekly meeting for July 2nd, 2018. I'm Scott and I'm the project lead for CircuitPython. I'm sponsored by Adafruit, like the whole project is. And we do this meeting every week as a chance for those of us who are sponsored to work on CircuitPython to also get together with the community folks and sync up on the latest and greatest CircuitPython stuff. We structure this meeting in 4 parts. We start with a state of CircuitPython where we go over kind of the stats of the week. And then we'll go on to Hug Reports, which is a chance for everybody to say thank you to other folks for the work that they've done in the past. It doesn't have to necessarily be the last week. And then after that, we'll do status updates, which is kind of what you've been doing and what you plan on continuing to do. It's a good way for us to all just be aware of who's doing what and point people in the right direction if they're doing related stuff. Also giving pointers on like, hey, you should do this or that. That is the structure of the meeting. And we do the last, actually, I forgot. We do discussion after status updates, which is longer form, kind of random stuff that we want to talk about. Hug reports and status updates we do in a like round robin format where we give everybody a chance to speak. And some people lurk, so if you're lurking or if you're typing only, just let us know. I'll read it out from the chat. This meeting happens on our Discord, which is adafru.it/discord, every Monday morning, Pacific time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Everybody's welcome to join. Just join the voice chat. We're on the text chat all week, so make sure to join Discord for that. If you can't make the meeting, we make it available on our YouTube, youtube.com/Adafruit, usually the same day, and the link also usually goes out in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter available at adafruitdaily.com. And with that, let's get going. Let me take a time code with my weird keyboard. And let's get going. State of CircuitPython, which is, I saw this number and I was quite surprised, which is awesome. In the last week, I took these numbers last night. 41 pull requests merged, which used to be a peak for us, but I think it's more and more a consistent number, which is amazing. We had 10 different authors. Shout out to Mike Barella, the kitty, who goes by the kitty on GitHub. For showing up on the list. Thank you for your commits. Dean 1278 is on there as well. Mikey Sklar, Arturo are names that I don't see on there very regularly. We had 5 different reviewers, and in the last week we had 6 new PRs, 4 authors, for a total of 13 open pull requests, although I think I merged a couple of those last night. So that number is actually a little bit lower. Issues wise, we had 11 closed issues by 7 different people and 6 opened by 6 people. So we're net down. We have 130 open issues, and unlike in the past, more and more issues are on libraries. So check the notes after the meeting, and we'll and take a look at some of these issues, because we should start being better about closing the issues that are off the main repo. We've been really good about closing the CircuitPython ones, but the libraries need some love too. Release-wise, the latest stable release is 3.0 RC0, which is our first release candidate. And it's had 423 total downloads, which I don't think is too different from last week. I think it's cooled off a little bit, but it is marked unstable, and a number of bugs have been found with it. So I actually think I'll do a release candidate 1 this week as well. Did I say that was stable? Anyway, our stable release is 2.3.1, and we have 3,690 total downloads for that. Yeah, and then overall, I would say that 3.0 is so super close. The first release candidate went pretty well. There was a couple issues. Somebody found a one-wire bug, and Dan fixed that, and Carter was super helpful there as well. So there will be another release candidate. We won't mark RC0 as the stable 3.0 release. So expect to see that this week. And 4.0 wise, we're doing more and more NRF52840 Bluetooth work, which is exciting, and been doing a lot of brainstorming around the gaming handheld as well. So both of those kind of elements will play into 4.0 depending on timing. We'll see what turns out to be what. Okay, so let's that's the state of CircuitPython. Let's do hug reports. Take a time code. I'll start. First, I wanted to say thank you to Lady Ada for the help with pip. I've spent the last couple weeks, or not last couple weeks, last couple days working and getting CircuitPython libraries into PyPI, which is the database of Python packages, typically used with CPython, which is desktop Python, rather than CircuitPython. But she did a bunch of work over the weekend to add more libraries to that, along with the work that she did to actually get the CircuitPython APIs running on Raspberry Pi as well. And then I wanted to thank Kattni for the code of conduct improvements. We went through a round of reviews and got really positive, constructive feedback. Thank you, everybody, for that. And we're ready to roll it out, so expect to see the Discord channel updated this week, along with starting to get all of our repos updated to the new revised code of conduct as well. Thanks to Dan Halbert for leading the charge on fixing the issues in the release candidate. And lastly, Mr. McWethy for the fix for the real-time clock. I really appreciate that. And that is a release candidate fix as well. But thanks to Mike for that. So, Brent.
Yeah, hug report to Scott and Lady Ada for Blinka. I'm going to do some work on that this week with the IO library for Python.
Awesome. Yeah, the Adafruit IO stuff is going to be really neat. Okay, Carter.
Group hug, of course, as always. And then one to Kattni and Summersoft for reviewing and merging the that last PR I did for the HT16K33 stuff. And to Jerry N for helping out in the forums with that one thread where someone was having CP issues. Mm-hmm. I kind of proved it wasn't really a true CP issue, but he kept following up to, I think, get them working. And I think hopefully they're good to go now.
Awesome. Yeah, good. And it's great to see other people doing reviews on library changes. Everybody should feel like they have the ability to do those reviews. Just if you do see anything that you're uncomfortable with, reach out to somebody who you think knows it better, and we can get you taught and trained on how to do that. So thanks, Carter. Dan.
Thanks to Jerry again for finding and documenting bugs. That's really helpful. And thanks to Kattni for writing the new GitHub guide, GitHub guide, which should really it's really awesome, and it'll really help a lot getting rid of the folklore that we keep repeating over and over again in the chat, and helping people who don't even know to ask in the chat. And then also thanks to you, Scott, for continuing to look at heap performance stuff, which is really helpful in the long run.
Yeah, I need to get that checked in.
Yeah, maybe that won't be in 3.x, but it'll be in the next thing.
Yeah.
Sounds like. So, yeah.
Yep. All right, and then Dave Estells wasn't able to make it, but said earlier with the Summersoft, thank you for pinging everybody about the meeting. We were in our own internal meeting, so thank you for doing that. And Dave responded with hug to everyone involved in writing and documenting the new rotary encoder support, which is something that he must have been working on. All right, Jay Epler, do you have anything? Just lurking today, group hug and an extra hug to everyone reviewing pull requests. Totally. Okay, Jerry.
Yeah, hug to Lady Ada, I guess Stefan and you, Scott, for getting the Blinka stuff out there. It's really been fun. I've been been having a lot of fun with it, and looking forward to its evolution, especially now that I hear there may be some Adafruit IO stuff coming. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dan, thanks for fixing up the Cricut stuff and the ESP8266. I think that was all in the past week. So thanks for all the help there.
Awesome. Okay, Kattni.
Yeah, so hug report to Mikey Sklar for writing his first driver and getting it submitted. That's all set to go, and he really put a lot of effort into dealing with Travis and made it through and did a really great job with that. I want to thank Roy for all his help over the weekend with some code I was working on. Hug report to Ntol, Nicholas Tollervy, for proofing my entire GitHub guide and providing feedback before I submitted it. That was super helpful. And thank you to Scott and Dan for helping me focus my workflow. Sometimes I get feeling like I overwhelmed, and you guys always manage after discussion to help bring it back to a good point. So thank you for that.
Yay. All right, we all need somebody to be like, well, maybe you should work on that. I wanted to do some fancy heap stuff, and Dan was like, why did you just wait till 4.0 to do that? And
Exactly.
haven't done it quite yet, but we'll get there. Okay, and then I'll read Mike's. Mike says, thanks to everybody, Dan for the Cricut library support, and Kattni for the GitHub guide. And, okay, Nis.
Hey, Lady Ada for the surprise for the Raspberry Pi, the new Python CircuitPython on Raspberry Pi. That's pretty exciting. And Kattni for doing that GitHub guide. I'm really looking forward to stopping long enough to read it. You know, I'm using GitHub all the time now, and Gitka is really great. GITK to visualize, and so I'm really looking forward to slowing down long enough to reading Kattni's guide, so I can actually save some time by thinking it through. It's hard to do because, you know, conceptualized. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Nis. I read through the GitHub guide last week, and it was really good. I knew most of it, but there was something that I didn't really realize that was good, but I can't remember. I'll have to go back and read it again. All right, let's do Summersoft. And is typing. Hi, Reverie.
Hey, how's it going?
We're in the middle of a meeting. We're doing a section called Hug Reports, where we thank people for help. Do you have any thank yous?
Oh man, everybody! Thank you to everybody here. Has almost helped me in some degree.
Awesome. Well, stick around. So what we're gonna do is we're just about wrapping up this Hug Report section, and we'll do status updates, and I'll intro that in just a sec. Last but not least, I'll read Summersoft, who's just typing. Says, Kattni for the GitHub guide. Super useful. Jerry, thank you for continued testing, breaking, in quotes, and fixing all manner of things. And Dan Halbert for the digital in-out fix, fixing switch to input in particular. Okay, so that was Hug Reports. Thanks, everybody. And now we'll go on to status updates. Status updates is a section for each of us to briefly talk about kind of what we've been working on and what we plan on working on in the coming week. Whether that's like for myself, it tends to be core CircuitPython work that's usually in C, but it might be if you're working on a project, or for a while Jerry was redoing his bathroom, and we like to hear all of that and hear how things are going. So we do it as a round robin, so I'll start and then we'll go down the list of people in the voice chat. And we have a couple others from people who weren't able to make it, so I'll read those after myself. So I'll take a time code. So for me, I got the pip packaging process going, which is also known as PyPI, which is the package index for Python. when you do pip install, there's a website that it goes to. So we're working on making all of the CircuitPython libraries available through pip, so that you can use them on a Raspberry Pi, for example. It's not done by running CircuitPython on the Raspberry Pi itself. It's done by the Blinka library that Stefan started, and Lady Ada has been working on as well, of providing all the CircuitPython APIs, but running in CPython. So that's how we're doing it. And you may have seen I filed an issue with like 12 or 13 steps to getting everything set up. So if anybody's interested in helping with that, let me know. I heard from Mr. McWethy earlier, so he may help do that. The other thing in terms of getting stuff done across all the repos, if people want to help get the new code of conduct checked into everything, maybe even automating it with a script, let me know. That would also be interesting. Personally, you may have noticed, gotten the clue that I'm not like fiercely hammering away at my keyboard. That's because my right hand, I'm right-handed, my right hand's been bothering me a little bit. So I'm currently in the middle of changing the keyboard that I use to type on and the key layout. So I'm very, very slow at typing at the moment. So if you're like chatting with me on Discord and you're like, see Scott's typing, and you wait and you wait and you wait, I am typing. It's just taking me longer than it used to. So just be aware of that. I'm going cold turkey on it, so just the longer I do it, the faster I'll get, which is good. Before I was doing the PyPI stuff last week, I was doing some heap analysis, and I should post some videos. I've got some new videos of how the heap allocations are happening, including one that's on the F4. So the proportions of everything have switched because just the heap is much bigger on the M4. Those are really interesting to watch, and I found a number of different optimizations, like long living the actual code.py code along with all of the libraries. We were previously only doing all the libraries that were imported. Not growing the QString pool as quickly as we were potentially if you had a lot of strings you were loading and things like that. So I've got most of that done. I've just got to make a define for the heap stuff. So I'm going to try to get just one PR that has like 4 commits of like all those small tweaks for the heap things. Another one of those things is actually just doing a GC collect after an import, because importing tends to allocate a lot of temporary stuff on the heap. So it keeps it tidier if we just do a collect after every import. And then so I want to get that in this week. And then I also want to do some CPU profiling stuff. When I was working on porting Celeste to the like early prototype hardware, basically like depending on the game level, it would either run really quickly or not quick enough. So I want to do some CPU profiling, I think, where we just every function call will log the function pointer and the time, or the time difference from the last thing. And so we'll be able to make some charts around like how long different function calls took and what function calls are happening, as a way to figure out like how to optimize stuff. So I think I'll just do it as a Python module where it's just like you give it a circular buffer and it just keeps track of it. It'll slow down execution a little bit, but I think it'll be really, really handy in terms of debugging. It'll be kind of a trace, similar to the internal trace buffer stuff as well. So I want to take a look at that either this week or maybe next week. It was when I'll actually get to it. Okay, and then so that's me, and let me read off Roy's. Roy wasn't able to make it, but typed it into the chat earlier. Says Roy said, "I won't be able to make today's call, but my status update is I've done some work on PixelBuff to implement a byte order class and implement all of the RGB, BGR, RGBW, RGBA classes that encode bytes per pixel and byte order details. These will be usable in the future NeoPixel 2 and DotStar 2 classes that will be using the RGB LED base class that I have just started working on." So Roy's making progress. Roy's been focusing a lot on improving the speed of DotStar and NeoPixel timing, which is really, really cool. And Okay, and then Dave Estelle's also couldn't make it. So I will also read that off. He says, I won't be able to make it, but I've been working with CircuitPython quite a bit. A new guide went live today that's based on CircuitPython. I don't actually know what guide it is, but if somebody knows, please drop it in the chat and we'll put it in the notes. Happy Day, who has been in the chat, also dropped in a status update, so I'll read that here as well. They've been working on, they say, I've been beavering away on a CircuitPython C module that sets an external interrupt that goes into the M0 standby mode. I've written up what I've done. Sources are 2. I think I'm close, but probably not handling the EIC correctly. If anyone has a moment, advice very much appreciated. Here's the write-up. And I'll actually copy that back into the chat. If that rings a bell for anybody, please reach out to Happy Day for help with that. It's something we intend on doing, but it just hasn't been a priority. So to see somebody else take it on is really cool. Okay, so that's all of the remote folks or the folks that couldn't make it. How about you, Brent? What's going on with you?
I've been doing a lot of renovation on the Python library for Adafruit.io. A lot of old issues from like even dating back to 2015, finally getting around to closing. So things such as MQTT not using secure ports.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to default to a secure port, just like the Arduino library. This morning I added in location, so you'll be able to send it latitude, longitude, altitude, and it'll actually take it now.
Cool.
And then throwing in Blinka later this week. I'm actually configuring it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get some I/O examples for Blinka going, and that'll be really awesome to combine the two.
Right. Yeah, I/O is going to be sweet.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks for taking a look at that. Carter.
Yeah, so for that HT16K33 repo, I think the last PR I put in basically was to fix something I broke with the segmented displays.
Mm-hmm.
Relative to like how to turn on and off the colons and the dots that are on these displays.
Right.
So it currently works as well as it used to, but Deshipu Radomir made a comment about the two display. There's 0.56 inch version and a 1.2 inch version, so kind of a small and a big. And there's differences between the two in terms of what they have in terms of dots and colons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be interesting to figure out a way to make that kind of work seamlessly between the two. So that's going to be kind of what I'll scratch my head on next. I ordered up one of the larger ones to play with.
Okay.
It'd be nice if they both just kind of looked the same and one was just small and one was big, but It's not. One has one colon, one has two. One, the dots are kind of like decimals in a number. The other one is just kind of like a weird AM PM indicator. So it's going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, it seems like you just want two different driver classes for it then.
Yeah, almost. But, you know, it'd be nice to see if you can make it almost be just as simple as, you know, just two different displays, or from a user's point of view, make it simple. But anyway, that's what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, making something simple is surprisingly difficult.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that in our previous meeting about how to make game creation and the Python gaming stuff really easy. And like for all the technical challenges of writing a game, of like keeping the display fast and stuff, like making it easy is by far the hardest challenge of all of it. Okay, I'm going to pause on Dan just briefly because Lady Ada popped in to say a hug report. She's text only, so she's not quite in sync with us in terms of timing, so I'll just squeeze it in. Lady Ada says, hug reports to Tan Newt, myself, for doing the Travis PI stuff I would never have figured out, and a bunch of peeps in the community for trying out Adafruit Blinka on a Pi. So that's what Lady Ada says. And now we'll skip back down to Dan's status update.
Hi. So last week there was someone reported that OneWire, Carter noticed the forum, somebody said OneWire doesn't work at all. And there were two problems. One was that digital in-out switch to input actually didn't work. but we never noticed that because people don't call it.
Right.
But the one wire has to switch back and forth between input and output because it has to simulate an open drain connection. And so I fixed that, and then it worked, except that it often got CRC errors. So after a couple days of debugging, it was because it was trying to do quite precise timing in the small and medium number of microsecond range, and it turned off interrupts while doing this. And if you do that, then the timer code doesn't work right, because in some cases, because when the systic timer gets to 0, there's an interrupt. But if the interrupt's turned off, that doesn't happen. And so it would sort of screw up, but only some of the time. So I did some calibration of just some busy wait loops to figure out to do microsecond timing and put that back in. And now one wire works without complaint, at least on the temperature sensor, which is the only interesting one wire device that I have.
Right.
And then I was starting to write up, I was doing some Cricut testing, and I said, this is too complicated. So I wrote a wrapper library for Cricut, kind of like the CPX library, and went through 3 iterations on the API, and now it's really simple, and it's tested. It required some changes in the motor library and the Seesaw library, and so there's a lot of moving parts to this. But here's that was unintentional. Yeah, and so I posted a link, but if you want to test it, if you have a Cricut and you want to try this out, ping me and I'll give you a UF2, because it's not all pull requested and checked in yet, and there are too many things. Lady 8 is going to test it, and so it will get all checked in, but we won't maybe do that until it's ready, until it's completely vetted. But if anybody'd like to test it, please let me know. Okay, and I'm going to start working on NRF stuff, or actually did start on that this morning.
Cool. Thanks for doing the Cricut library. I think that layer of really let's remove as much initialization as we can is super nice. So thank you for doing that for Cricut. It's definitely really helpful. It's amazing.
You're welcome. Yeah.
It's amazing how the examples just disappear.
Right. The examples turn into one line. Yeah.
Right. It's a great place to be. Okay, and then I'll take a time code and read Jeff Epler's notes. Thanks, Dan. Jeff Epler says, no CircuitPython time in the last 2 weeks, but I have been doing fun hobby stuff with GPS-based precision timing. Interesting. A friend and I tuned a 40-year-old crystal oven to exactly 4,320,000 hertz, according to GPS. Awesome. And so thanks, Jeff. We will fit. Jerry, before you go, let me just read. Actually, go ahead, Jerry. We'll do Lady Ada after you.
Okay. It's been a bunch of time playing with servos on the Cricut and learning some great things. Thanks for the help on that, Dan, and seems to now working well. And then I'll spend a lot of time the last couple of days playing with Blinka and having a blast. And one thing I did discover, and you can tell me later in the weeds section if this is a bad idea, but if you want to try a library that hasn't been officially ported yet, I found that you can just download the library and an example, as long as they're in the same subdirectory with the core Blinka stuff installed. It works fine. At least I have for the ones I've tried so far. I've been able to run through a couple of quick tests, and actually I've been playing. I spent a lot of time in the week trying to get the RF95X stuff working on a Raspberry Pi from a different library, and I finally got that all working. But then now found that it was really easy to get it working, even with the partially implemented SPI under Blinka. So that that'll really come together fast. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. This whole Raspberry Pi work was something that we knew we wanted to do at some point, and like Limor just came along and did it, and now it's awesome. So thanks for testing it and finding the little issues with it. It's having it tested that makes it usable, that makes it useful. Okay, thanks, Jerry. And I'll read off Lady Ada's here. Lady Ada says, hi, okay, I finally sat down and made an MVP, min viable product of Adafruit Blinka on Raspberry Pi. It's held together with Twine, but it works. Digital I/O, I2C bus I/O, and SPI bus I/O are tested. SPI is still minimal, but I2C and digital I/O are good. The next steps are getting all our libraries tested and into PyPI. UART and PWM will come later, have to be sneaky with those. For other Linux boards like the BeagleBone Black or Orange Pi, etc., we'll use MRAA. If anyone here is an MRAA expert or have arcane Linux boards, now would be a super awesome time to help out. That's it. So yeah, if somebody's a Linux pro on those small stuff, please let us know, and we'll get all of the CircuitPython libraries going on small Linux boards, which would be really, really cool. Okay, Kattni.
Yeah, hi. So last week I finished up the GitHub guide that everyone's mentioning, or over the last week rather. And that's set and ready to go. I'm really excited about that. If anyone has feedback about that, please provide it. It's obviously a massive guide, and there's a lot to it. And if there's something that could be clearer, or if there's something you need help with or something like that, please feel free to ask. And we'll try and help you through that part, or see whether there's a better way to explain it and that sort of thing. I finished up the code of conduct. We're going to be getting ready to deploy that, so that should be that's finished up though. I started working on code for an audio page for the CircuitPython Essentials guide. I found that the code for audio out and raw sample, the examples that are in read the docs, which are built from the code itself, are incorrect. So I fixed those and put in a pull request for that. I started running through code from the Essentials guide on the Itsy Bitsy M4 and found some issues with that. Board now includes things that aren't pins. Mm-hmm. So all the scripts that I wrote to determine pin pairs for UART or SPI or whatever don't work, because when it tries to produce a pin pair out of something that isn't a pin, the script fails. Right. So I've updated that, and
how did you fix
locally. I fixed so there's a function in it called get unique pins, and that's what goes through everything in board to determine what to use to try and pair up later. And so I actually forced it to not use something that isn't a pin.
Using just is instance or something?
Yes. So if it pulls, because it searches through everything and yanks out a couple, because like for example, even though the APA 102 SCK pin is a SPI pin, it's not really a SPI pin. You can't use it. So it doesn't show you that already. That was part of what that function was for. So instead of pulling it out manually, I did like an is instance thing where it now, if it finds a function, which is what the other things that are in board now are, it just skips it and doesn't use it.
Right. Cool.
So that was a find, which is funny because we kept joking that we wanted to go through the Essentials guide with the Itsy Bitsy M4 and that we wouldn't find any problems, but we should do it anyway, and we found problems. So
yep.
Next up, I'm going to be working on the audio page that I started last week. I didn't start the page, but started the code for it, for the CircuitPython Essentials guide, because we've got some solid audio stuff now with API changes for 3.0. I'm going to be going over the current I2C guide. I actually looked in read the docs, and there's nothing about read into, so I'm going to have to see a recent example that works to figure out which one we should be using.
Yeah.
because it's not available in Read the Docs. So something I looked up. So that I'm going to be doing is going over that guide. We're going to deploy the code of conduct to Discord, which is the easy part, and then begin working on deploying it to all of the GitHub repos, which is the less easy part. And like you were saying, if anybody is interested in helping with that or wants to try and automate it, that would be fantastic. Because that's going to be, it's the same as it has been every time we find one thing in all of the repos we want to update, where it's just systematically going through it. So any kind of help with that would be great. It's a simple way to contribute because it's not, it's just updating documentation.
It's a good way. So, it's a good way to learn Git as well.
Yes, it is. Because you can go through the entire process found in the guide and learn how to do that. And you're not attempting to also produce content with that. So that's, I think that's everything that's going on with me. And that's where I'm at.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Kattni. And thanks again for helping with the notes too. I think I might want to do this every week. It's really nice. All right. Nis. We're skipping Mike because he's lurking today.
I don't know if that formatted or not. I'm working on the application note 321. Makes it easy to remember. Just little bits of it, because it was hinted at. Happy Day was working on this sleep thing, and I got interested. So I looked at the upstream stuff that she posted, and it looked like, it was doable. So I've got a working sleeper here. It runs off the USB battery, which has a little purple LED indicating that it's putting out juice. And when the Feather M0 Express goes to sleep, sure enough, that purple LED goes out. So it's kind of cool. Now, I don't have any real use for battery-operated stuff, but it's intriguing, and it seems approachable. So right now I'm doing that with the Arduino IDE.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you did it in Arduino or in your 4th version as well.
Well, the problem is it shuts off the USB. So the 4th is designed around constant tethering through USB, and so I have to figure out what I want to do with that. I can write it autonomously, but basically at that point I'm programming in 4th in my head, but what a human sees on the keyboard is C. C++, and I'm thinking in 4th, but I'm still coding in C. So
that's a similar challenge for CircuitPython.
That big splash there of stuff there is they're all path names to the Arduino IDE. I didn't really know how to present it. So in Linux, you have a .arduino 15 directory in your home directory, and everything is underneath that. So those are the 3 include files for the Power Manager, I think, PMH. System H, and Core CM0 Plus H, which I really don't know what that is. But each one of those produced something with the Silver Surfer that was relevant to this project.
AG is awesome.
It's great.
CM0 Plus is for the Core, which is the Cortex M0 Plus, which is the ARM version on the SAMD21.
And apparently it's used in the bootloader. So the sleep, I don't know why you would want a sleep code in the bootloader, but it looks like it might be in there.
Yeah, I mean, the CM0 Plus file is definitely, it includes all of the memory addresses for the core registers, for the registers for the CPU core.
Also, Google search turned up a big page from Microbit, I think, on this stuff. So I didn't look at it because it was like, whoa, I didn't even know they were our cousins. I'm remarkably good at not noticing similar projects.
Yeah, I think it is also like a Cortex M0 Plus. It's an NRF 51, but I think it's Cortex M0 as well.
Okay, so the symbols are the same.
Yeah, these core symbols would be. The PM.H and the system.H would not necessarily be, because that's atmel specific stuff, but the core CM0 Plus file is something you get with every every microcontroller that uses a Cortex M0 Plus.
Okay.
That file is provided by ARM, not by Atmel, for example.
Right. Right.
Cool.
Well, I mean, they're just hints. That's
Totally.
why I listed them there, because a lot of times just knowing the names of the symbols is really helpful in finding additional resources.
Yeah, especially when they're obscure and called WFI and things like that.
Yeah. All right, that's it from me. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Nis.
Yep.
All right. Old Crow, do you have a status update? I know you joined us late. You might be lurking at work. All right. We'll skip you. Reverie, what are you working on? Let us know. Reverie didn't hear me. All right. We hit the lurker section, I guess. Okay. Summersoft, go ahead. Summersoft says, frequency int module didn't work this much last week. Video game Vortex. What video game? That's the important information. Tightened M4 numbers a little bit, leftover external interrupt async setting from tests. I started a spreadsheet to help find a pattern in the results to attempt calibration. It's not appearing linearly at the moment. I may add calibration ability for the user side. M0 is still pretty much spot on. Regarding the little Leslie amp, I have a draft design for the rotating assemblies and most of the bill of materials for applicable bits. Initial budget projection is blown to pieces. Oh no. Budget's so important, and yet it's so hard to do it. And then in terms of what video game it was, it's Battlefield 3, which is quite fun. I was definitely into the Battlefield franchise for a while. Although I just installed Stellaris over the weekend, so my friend wants to play that too. All right. Let's... Yeah, but not very good notes. Katney asked me in the doc if I take notes for In the Weeds. I do, but they're not usually very good. So yeah, that's where we're at. We'll at least note what time the In the Weeds section starts. 42:45. Into the Weeds is a chance for us to just talk about anything that came up during the discussion that might take a longer amount of time. Reverie Quest says, nope, just following along, just small random learning projects. We do like to hear about those, so feel free to jump in and talk about that. Yeah, so for In the Weeds, I think the only thing that came up is Jerry mentioned talking about Blinka a little bit more. Do you want to talk about that, Jerry?
Yeah, the only thing I just want to see if anybody had a severe warning. I was playing around and, I saw some requests people were putting out, for, this or that driver. And so I thought, well, gee, what would happen if I just, grabbed a driver and I did two things. One is I took the examples program that I wanted to run, or an example I've been using, and then grabbed the driver. And the first thing I did was I actually copied the driver into my, into where all the Python stuff gets installed. Right. And that actually worked great. But then I thought that may not be a great idea to start mucking around with the place that Python puts its libraries. That can get me in trouble fast.
Right.
So I said, well, what if I just keep it locally? And so I just create a subdirectory, put my test script and the driver in that, right. And it worked fine.
Right.
So as long as you're using the stuff that's in the core Blinka. So I was just curious if there was any warning about doing that, or any reason why that wasn't a good idea.
I think that's perfectly valid. It's just not something that we'd expect people more broadly to do. Like, we'd rather just
sure. And again, your mileage may vary. It's certainly at your own risk.
Right.
Because actually, what I found then was I wanted to play with the RF95 stuff, and clearly there were some problems with the SPI stuff that I wasn't sure were fundamental or just because it's of its early stage. It turns out after discussing it with Lady Ada, it's more just things just aren't there yet. But I was able to hack a version that actually worked, much to my surprise. So
Awesome.
that was really fun. And I was trying to decide if this warranted looking back at the existing repository, but I'll hold off on all that until the SPI finishes. But it's really
yeah,
really fun to hack.
If you figured out how to fix it, then that seems worth
Well, I
getting
found
in.
a way to make the current RF95 work with the current SPI, but that's probably not, in the SPI will probably add some features that will make the changes unnecessary. So
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it too much. More would know more.
Yeah. So yeah, that was her comment. So again, I'm perfectly happy to wait. And again, it's working for me, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I actually want to play with the RF69 stuff next. So
okay.
But
cool.
Yeah. But if anyone, again, if anyone wants to try a driver that isn't been ported yet, it certainly can be done.
Right.
Without waiting for it or asking for it.
Cool. All right. Anybody have other stuff they want to talk about? Summersoft is typing. Brent wants to talk with me about keyboards, but we don't have to do that in this meeting. All right, I'll wrap it up then. Thank you everybody for joining the, I don't know, this is like 40 or 50 now episodes that we've had. I think we started doing them last August or so. Thanks to everybody for joining the CircuitPython Weekly. We do it every week, Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, here on Discord. To join Discord, you can go to the URL adafru.it/discord. We're only usually in the voice chat around meeting time, but we also are in text chat most of the week. So if you have questions about CircuitPython or want to show off your project or ask us questions, we're there. The server is more general Adafruit stuff as well. So everybody's welcome. This meeting was recorded, both the text chat, so the window was recorded along with the audio. And it will be shortly available on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit. So thank you everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks everyone.
And have a happy 4th.